So don't question me about my thing, just do your thing and be cool. Cause I know exactly whose I am, don't worry about it, homie, do you. Cause I've been rapping for a minute now. Used to walk around dead, but I'm living now. I'm just being myself, and evidently people gon' hate when you coming with a different sound. So don't question me about my thing, just do your thing and be cool. Cause I know exactly whose I am, don't worry about it, homie, do you. Cause I've been rapping for a minute now. Used to walk around dead, but I'm living now. I'm just being myself, and evidently people gon'
What's up, my tokers, jokers, and smokers? It's your boy Chef Rod in the house. I'm here with my man Nick Frags. Sorry, I told you I'd screw it up. Chef Nick Frags in the house, y'all. What's up, Nick? Thanks for
What's
coming on the
up,
show, bro.
man? Thank you for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely, my man. I'm sorry. I knew I was gonna do it. I knew I was gonna
it.
do
You
it.
put it in your head, man. You spoke it
I
into
did.
existence.
But it's a good it's one of those good laughs where you're like, hey, he's done this 1,000 times and he trips out the door and you have to just
I do it
take
all the
two.
time.
You know what I mean?
All the time.
You know it is, man. But hey, man, thanks for coming on the show. I I've been meaning to reach out for a while. I've looked at a lot of your plates and from one chef to another, I can see the passion. I can see your angle. It makes sense to me, man. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stories to it. Um, if there was one thing that I could really really take away from this, I want to start off right off the bat. If there was one dish that for whatever reason you specifically remember making and that was the most memorable that you've made, what stands out?
Oh, um, I would have to say, just due to the fact it's anything that's like a braised, slow cooked, dished
Mm,
out. For me, it's like braised beef, so it's either beef cheeks or oxtail or short ribs, with polenta. And the reason is my grandparents on I'm adopted, so my mom's side, they're from Italy. They're from outside of Rome. Grew up poor, as
mhm.
many of our grandparents in that generation did. But like for their birthdays were 2 days apart. So one was or I'm sorry, 1 day apart. One was the 21st of January, one was the 22nd. So we used to have this huge pot of like Sunday sauce going all day with pork skin
Mm.
and like short ribs and short ribs. So there'd be like one pot of like sausage and pork and one pot of beef, and then it would just be this huge stock pot of polenta. We would cover our entire wooden table, or the entire dining room table, with like a wooden board, and we just dump the polenta on that board. And then dump the sauce on top, and then you just got a fork, and that spot in front of you on the table is where you ate. And that was our family's meal, and that meal is still like really really important to us. And so whenever I have like a braised short rib ragu with, whether it's gnocchi or just polenta or something like that, that to me is that's that dish that it's like I start having like these like psychedelic trips almost when I eat it. My whole life flashes before my eyes
Right.
when I eat it, and it's become such an important dish to me in the restaurants I've worked at and on my live stream, and for my family. I mean, we eat it every Sunday. So
Dude, and that's my point. Tradition has a certain taste,
it does.
consistency has an even better one, coming
Yeah.
from the chef industry. I think that, and that's the point. It doesn't matter what the dish is, it's why the dish is really
Yeah.
what I like to teach people, at this point. Um, it's interesting, with polenta being dumped kind of family service style like that. Because I've seen some runny polentas, let's admit, and I've seen some very firm tofu like polentas.
Yep.
So, I'm wondering a consistency there, but I'm willing to bet that that's not something that I would question. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to wonder. And
It
once I see it, I'll be like, that makes sense. You know what I mean?
it's for some reason, it's just it was her name was Beatrice, my
Mhm.
grandmother. Every time it was like divinely perfect. Like you
Mm.
never had to worry about it ever being anything different. It was just perfect every time.
That's perfection again has a taste. It's interesting because I take that back. Perfection doesn't have a taste, it has a flavor profile, because we understand, okay, with anything braised, anything short ribs, things of that nature, mixing with polenta, okay, that makes sense because those flavor profiles match.
Yeah.
There are a lot of culinary boundaries, I'm sure you've heard of them the same as me, that have been pushed, due to molecular gastronomy.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. Gastriques, foams, every pearls, you
Yeah,
name it.
we've all been there. We've all done that,
Mhm.
you know? It was
It
definitely big. What, the last 20 years? I mean, it started about 20 years ago,
oh
turn of
yeah,
the,
yeah, like
the
15,
millennium.
20 years ago. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, it's interesting because I remember I applied for a job and they're like, you know how to do foams? And I'm like, oh God, seriously? I was like, no, but I'm willing to learn. They're like, cool. And he just hands me a book. And I'm like, going back to school, man. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But it's crazy. So you're down in South Carolina, just kind of, killing it, doing your thing. Tell me kind of like what happened during COVID. Take me back to 2020, man, like in the restaurant scene. Like what happened, bro?
It was pandemonium down here. I was working in Charleston, South Carolina, which, as a lot of us know, was the booming city. It was the hot, that was the hot new girl at school. Like everybody, Charleston. People were packing their knives and going, myself included. I packed my knives. I went down there. I actually commuted from Myrtle Beach to Charleston, 2.5 hours each way for 5 months to work for Neighborhood Dining
Oh,
Group, which was Sean Brock's dining group down there.
right.
And so I was working down there. I was working at the Obstinate Daughter, which they got their first, best chef James Beard nod that year, and restaurants started opening like crazy. So sous chefs were going out. The pop-up scene started, going crazy there. Ghost kitchen collaborations. People were opening like little tiny boutique restaurants, and then all of a sudden people were investing all this money. And I'm talking like these restaurants were massive and expensive. They were, and even the smaller ones were just beautiful, upscale, like
Right.
everything top of the line. And then all of a sudden everything ended.
Oh
Snap
no.
of a finger, it was done. I don't know if it's a blessing or what happened. I moved back up to Myrtle Beach to be with my family. I was working. I didn't see my family but for 2 days a month because I was working
Oh
down
no.
there. And I was busy. We worked 6 days a week,
Right.
75 hours a week. So I would get 2 days to go and spend time with the family. So I made that tough decision to kind of hang it up and
Scale it back.
come back
Yeah.
to Myrtle Beach. But when I did, I mean, uh, I don't even know what half the people are doing. I know a lot of people that I personally worked with have either moved
Right.
or they've, taken jobs in corporate restaurants, or, they had to do what they had to do anywhere they could just to make a living. I think it's finally starting to come back around a little bit down there.
Right.
Um, but I mean, the scene there was exploding like crazy, and just to see it come to a halt was very, very humbling. I guess as a chef, and just seeing what something like this could do to, especially as chefs. I mean, food is our
Hmm.
entire livelihood, and just to see, a virus, or a sickness or a plague, a pandemic, just be like, you know what, you're on hold, and we don't know when you're coming back. It was scary.
Oh, dude, I can only imagine it. There's well, a little bit, let's go back to like 2006, for a second, when like GM started doing the layoffs and the closures, and the plants were closing and stuff. There's an Oldsmobile plant in Lansing here, and it closed, and with that went a bunch of different jobs. A bunch of people lost
Oh
their
yeah,
livelihoods. They had 30, 40, 50 years in there, and they're just like, well, we can either retire you or you're fired, one of the two. Like, you just can't
yeah,
stay here. And that decimated an economy here, that killed a lot of bars, and a lot of, local attractions and things. And you can, some stuff got torn down. It's barren. You get the idea.
yeah.
um and then the pandemic happened, man. And then, like, as soon as the pandemic happened, there's chefs that have like had restaurants here for 30, 40 years that they've got to close the doors, because it eviscerated them. And that's devastating. That's not, dude, I would have never imagined, having to actually, like, if you would have told our parents, okay, 20 years ago, that this was going to happen, they would have been like, there's no way in hell.
No, I mean, when I was trying to figure out, when I left school, I was in college on a full baseball scholarship. I got hurt.
Right.
I lost it. I didn't think, I didn't want to be in school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a chef. And, like, one of the ways we justified it is, well, guess what? Like, everybody's always going to have to eat. You're good. You're always going
Yep.
to have work. Well, I
You
didn't think
always
that
have a
we would,
job.
I didn't think that, like, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, this is like a plague coming in. Like, maybe we're not always going to have a job. It was crazy.
My
It
friend,
was,
I got a friend, we call him Jim Gaffigan. His name's not Jim Gaffigan, it's actually Terrell, but we call him Jim Gaffigan because he does his Jim Gaffigan impression, and he's a chef too. And we go, hey, Jim. what do you think about the pandemic? He was like, am I gonna have to learn to cook people? Like, it was really funny. Like, I laughed my ass off. I was like, no. But
That's too funny.
he's a
We
good
just
guy.
watched the
I
Jim
hope he's.
Gaffigan stand up the other night, like 2 nights ago. We just watched the new one. It was
Which
great.
one? Which one?
It's the one that just came out on Netflix.
I haven't seen it
Like
yet. Is it
it's
good?
end of last
Oh,
year. It's
of
very
course
good.
it's good.
Yeah,
Of course
very
it's
good.
good. I
He's
don't
one
know
of
why
our
I asked that.
favorites.
Dude, I remember when he hit the stage. Like, I found Jim Gaffigan in 2009. I found him on
Yep.
XM radio with the brand new car that I bought. You know what I'm saying? That came with it. He popped up. That shit was funny. You know.
Yep.
And that led into this whole Jim Gaffigan like fucking rabbit hole. And I'm like, all right, you're funny. Okay.
He's good.
You
And
know?
you know what? Mad respect. He keeps it clean. And that's
Oh, yeah.
not easy to do, you know?
It's not. It's not. R.I.P. Bob Saget. Honorable mention. You know, let's.
Yeah.
I know that's a little late on the boat, but like at the same time, homie, like I grew up him being like one of those like very suburban dads on TV, right?
He was everyone's dad. We grew up in the, I was
And then he
born in
got
the
raunchy.
and then then out of nowhere it's just like, oh my goodness, what happened? It's like going it's like going somewhere and like seeing like your uncle doing something he's not supposed to. You're just like, what?
Right. This is Tijuana.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
Dad,
man.
no.
Well, that's here's the thing. As chefs, like, we've seen this shit though. Like we have that sous chef that's just like, listen, I'm not sure if he's murdered somebody. I'm just gonna assume for safe, guard that he has. Yeah, yeah. So don't piss in his Cheerios.
Yeah.
That guy though, fuck him. You know what I mean? It's really funny, but at the same time, like whether you like kind of hate on that black sheep of the restaurant or not, the dishwasher, whoever it is, you still love them, and they're
You
still
have
your
to.
asshole.
They're an
You know
essential part.
exactly.
It's the cornerstone of the restaurant family.
And that's here's the thing. Much like amazing chefs before us, when I visit a restaurant that sometimes I take a tour, sometimes I look around, knowing local people, it works out. I don't start talking to the executive chef right off the bat unless I know them. I always, try to start with the dishwasher, or I'll at least make sure I ask, the important questions because they know what the fuck is up.
They know. And that's the thing. If they've been there for like 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, you know that place is like a well-oiled machine that's going. And that's one thing you could always tell. When those restaurants have a different dishwasher, every time you go in there, you know that things aren't going smoothly and fluidly from the top. You know it for a fact.
Oh yeah. And you can just tell by the dishwasher, and you're 100% correct. And it's interesting because like I worked at a higher end restaurant down near Detroit, and there's this like 45-year-old really cool dishwasher. I'm gonna use a fake name because I know what he says. Ted. Ted would come in, he'd do his 9 to 5 dishes, literally 9 till 5, and he didn't work weekends. And I'm like, okay, the guy's surly, no big deal. Like I didn't really, who am I to judge? Okay. And as soon as like I'm sitting there like working and stuff at 5 o'clock, he'd punch out, leave, and obviously there's an hour there where dishes rack up and stuff, but it's no big deal. Everybody chips in, but I would know. I was like, wait a minute, how much is? And I didn't ask. I was like, how much is he? He can't make $25 now. What is? Found out though. He had the best fucking weed. That's what it was. And so come payday, he about doubled his check.
He probably doubled his,
yeah. Oh yeah. So, and I noticed every day on payday, he was there, a couple hours early. And I'm like, okay. I wasn't there long enough to know, you know what I mean?
He was just inserting himself into a very formidable environment. And he was just,
he's very strategic in his ways. And he's like, and I was like, hey man, why ain't, like, I've been here. I was like, yo, I've been here for a couple months now. Why haven't you ever approached, to like sell me weed? He's like, you never came to me. He's like, in my business. And that's the truth. I didn't even think about that, kind of foot meets mouth there. But like, having broken the ice, I guess, tripping over my shit, if you will, like fucking, it worked out. And he had some killer weed too. It was really good. And I was like, now this makes sense.
This makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, cool. And that was one of the happiest kitchens I've ever worked in.
I can only imagine.
I do, want to ask real quick while I'm rolling up his joint, what's the cannabis scene down there look like? Like put me kind of in the market. Like, is it non-existent? Like, what's the scoop there, man?
Yeah, here where I live now, I live in a place called Carolina Forest outside of Myrtle Beach. It's not a thing because it's not
Okay.
legal here in South
Right.
Carolina.
Right.
Now in Charleston, also still not legal. However, you can kind of find, you know, chefs hanging out together, like old school,
Right.
like after hours dinner things where, where hey man, we're doing this and we could, meet up later. We're closed, restaurants are down here, especially a lot of them are closed on Mondays. Let's have like a little, let's have chefs from the area go ahead and we can cook for each other. But otherwise right now it's not legal here. So we're one of those states that people are just like kind of looking at their watches and checking the calendars. Just all
Right.
right, come on, come on.
How do people down there feel about the potential of like federal legalization?
I
Or is that even
feel
like talked about?
uh, I don't even know if it's talked about much down here because it's just especially here and in Charleston because here for different reasons. Here because of
Right.
what this area has in down near the boardwalk and everything, and then
Mm-hmm.
in Charleston it's such a driven scene with artists and chefs and musicians that I don't even it's kind of just like it's happening.
Right.
It is. But here I think they're definitely waiting. And I
There's
think, yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you're good. I was just thinking, I think there is a little bit of the older generation here that's kind of waiting for it too. Like, the ones that are where I live in my community,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of younger blue collar people that made their money up north and now live here
Right.
and they're retired and they're always out having their margaritas and hanging out, and I think that they're just waiting. I think I can tell just by talking to a lot of them, they're just like, you know what, it would be nice.
Yeah, I uh I have a couple of friends like down south in the Bible Belt, and it's there's CBD that's legal down there. That's the non-psychoactive and stuff, and so it's starting to get there. And it's interesting because I have a chef friend in Nashville that was like, "Hey, there's a restaurant being built with the theme of cannabis, and it's not even legal here yet." He's like, "Do you
Yep.
want to explain this one to me?" And I was like, "Well, they can build it, and then people will know about it and advertise. People can start building this a year, before
Yeah.
the legislation or whatever." And so like it was interesting because he went into basically say he's like, yeah, well, they're talking about it. There's a medical program and things of that nature. Now, is that something that cannabis? Is this something that you use to kind of come up through your tutoring, if you will, come up through the ranks, or is that something
I
that you were just like didn't even mess with?
I did in the past when I was
Right.
younger. I have been now. I don't even like to call cannabis like narcotics because
Yeah.
no, but I've been clean for over 14 years now.
Yeah.
So
Right on.
I so for me it's I even just quit drinking about 3 years ago. So now and
Congratulations.
I quit smoking cigarettes December 1st. So like
There
I'm
you
in this
go.
phase of getting everything out, but I did growing up. It was a way after, especially as a young cook, like when
Hmm.
you get home from those stressful times where you're not a skilled chef yet, you're kind of like grinding through and it's like, that was a way to really just kind of all right, like leave work at work and just chill out and put on a funny movie with your friends. We were young, single, and it was definitely something that was an everyday part of our lifestyle. I mean, after
We
work
were
for sure.
young,
But
dumb, and full of bad choices.
yeah, but now, it's crazy. Like I said, it's been 14 years, but I
Well,
know that with me, I have Crohn's disease. I haven't
right,
had health insurance in the last 7, 8 years.
right.
I used to have, really bad crippling anxiety disorders that I seem to get under wraps on my own. But I know it's something that with the right kind of program and the
Mhm.
usage that it would benefit me. So it's something that I'm definitely looking forward to in the future for more of medical reasons. But I mean, if I'm a family man now, so we
Right.
got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old running around. but for medical reasons,
Keep it away
I,
from the kids. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure. It's kind of hard how to go about it, being that we grew up where it was the war on drugs and it was dare, and it was just like, this is bad, devil's lettuce, this
Right.
is it. And but there's so many benefits to the plant nowadays, whether it comes from manufacturing and hemp and the effects of CBD and THC and use, medically and recreationally, that I think it just needs to be completely redefined by society right now. It's not this horrible thing that people thought it was.
And I didn't pay you to say that. That's the best part, man. Like
No,
the
no.
people like out there that don't smoke weed, like seriously, like, and that's the goal. Like
I am
love that.
I am pro for sure when when it's used correctly and not taken advantage of. But then again, people didn't, people used to be able to go home and have a Manhattan or a martini and call it a day. But when you have five and you're doing this,
Right.
every good thing has its downside. It's minimalizing the downside and being responsible.
Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Always, but I'm all about it. I'm pro, especially for the like. I think it needs to be like medically, it needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. It's
100%. It's
way
changed my life.
behind. Yeah.
So because of cannabis, I'm not sure if you, because I know we are in some of the same mental health groups and chef groups online.
Yeah.
True Cooks being one of the biggest. You know what I mean? One of the reasons I got sober like almost 6 years ago is because of weed. I tried everything, bro. I tried everything. I couldn't drink anymore, and now when I smoke a joint, it's a whole different story. I'm not like, I'm not like Snoop Dogg or like
See,
Willie
for me,
Nelson.
I always had, now this is back in like, I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. Like, this is back in like the 90s, and like I didn't have good reactions, right?
Right.
But now things are so fine tuned. Like you get something that's like, oh, we got this percentage with like this amazing golden ratio of 3.73 to this. And I was just like, this could probably really help me out here. Because for me, it was, I'm either here or I am pie-eyed on a different planet, laughing at a can of paint in my garage. Like that, there was no.
You say that like you've been there, sir.
That's how it was. It was always so elevated for me that I was like, I can't see this doing any good for me, and that's why I never. When I stopped, I was like, I'll just stop. And nowadays, like I said, when it comes to me, the only thing that keeps me from now is the fact that it is still technically illegal where I live. So I have this moral thing where, hey, I've been sticking to this code for 14 years, and it's got me out of some really bad places. And I would like to stick to that code. And as soon as it becomes legal here, maybe it's something you look into for, especially for my medical reasons.
There'll be more information once that happens too.
And I've heard it's done amazing things for people with Crohn's disease, and
it saves people's lives.
Yeah. So if it's something that would fit me for medical reasons, that's a way I would look back and, definitely.
So a little bit of education real quick, to pass some information along. If we're talking about it. So you're going to want to worry about two things once this starts rolling out. When you pick up a bag of weed and it says, oh, purple chunk month, that doesn't, sometimes the names don't actually fucking matter. It's lineages. That's not the important part. That'll come later. That's like craft beers or whatever have you. That'll come later.
Exactly.
You want to know about terpene profile and strains, like you were saying, that have different mixes. Now I'm going to tell you this. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. They don't love you like I love you. I'm going to tell you this. If you haven't smoked weed in about 14 years, it's different, bud. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot stronger. Okay.
Yeah.
A couple people I smoked with similar. They're like, holy shit. I'm like, right. So if you were soaring back then, let's start you in really, really slow. You know what I mean? Microdosing 100% is a thing.
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on something real quick. So psychedelics like mushrooms, what do you think about that coming along, having these clinical studies done with depression and stuff? What do you think?
I actually just watched I watched the documentary. This is like before you and I started even talking about doing this. It was probably like 3 or 4 months ago. We Laura and I watched it, and it was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Now, I've always heard that it can have some that there's possibilities of really helping with that. And I struggle, like I was on bipolar medication for 15 years as a kid. And, I finally was able to get out of that, getting clean. Like
Right.
that's what like set me straight. But there's some people, like I truly believe that it can work. And when it comes to like the structure, like how the mycelium and like those networks that they have, where they they have this tree, and there's a
Mhm.
tree 200 feet away that's dying, and these mycelium like networks under the ground
Mhm.
figure that out and stop sending nutrients to some trees and start sending it to the other ones. It is absolutely unbelievable. There is definitely something there that we need to do more research on, but I think it is simply one of the most fascinating things that will ever happen in human history. Like when that comes out, like I'm truly convinced that that is going to be something that changes. Like when it happens, it's going to change the
Right.
world forever.
So we're gonna see. That's what I'm gonna say because
Yeah.
I've done shrooms back in the past, and it's more of just like, hey man, I'm at a party. Somebody, hey, get some shrooms. Hey, cool. I just grabbed them and scooped them. You know what I mean? And held
That's
on.
and that's where the issue is
Hmm.
where we've taken so many good things throughout history, we've turned them into bad things, and
Hmm.
we've run down that path, and it halts, whether it's the last 50 years of time that we could have been doing research because they were
Hmm.
being abused, and it got a bad name because of that. When it comes down to it again, there's going to be people that abuse it, and that's going to give it a bad name. But if there's some way that we can keep this research going, even though they have a bad rap right now, if we just keep research going,
Right.
just keep it going. I mean,
And that's yeah. Excuse me. I feel that research. Okay, so research has been happening all along. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yes,
Um, but it hasn't been released. It's been redacted in some senses because it was been illegal. The United States has had a patent on cannabis since it's been a thing. As a matter
yeah,
of fact, I have a picture of this and I'll send it to you. I'm going to throw it up on the screen. Actually, we'll edit it, but I'll throw it up on the screen right about now. But it's going to be or maybe whatever. But it's from 1938, and it's like a license to sell marijuana from 1938,
wow,
like before all, and so it's interesting because that's actually happening now. We have these here in Michigan. You
yeah,
can get a micro grow license, business license. It's recreationally legal. So that means anywhere that it's legal to smoke cigarettes, which not a lot of, so you can get away with smoking a joint in a park. It's not a cigarette, you know what I'm saying? It
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah,
But at the same time, like anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you can just automatically smoke a joint. That makes sense. Like people are cool with that. People usually stay at home, but it's, if
yeah.
I'm walking down the sidewalk hitting my vape pen, playing Pokemon Go, cop's not going to say anything. That's the truth. Now, if you're smoking a joint, and this is the only bad time that I've had, I was smoking a joint near the Capitol, and we were going actually into to listen to a bill be read, and speak our piece about it because it destroyed caregivers' rights here. But that's a whole different ball game. There's a whole political thing that I got involved in, and it sucks. But at the same time, the guard came out and he goes, "Hey, I need you guys to move around the corner." He's like, "I know you're gonna light up, that's fine, but there's a group of kids across this, down
Yeah,
this way." He's like, "Just stand over here, you're all right." And I'm like, "Dude, sweet." You know what I'm saying? Like, you've
cool.
made it official now. Now we got it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I mean, at that
But
point, it's
but
just be
that's a different
courteous.
story. Exactly.
I wouldn't smoke cigarettes and just like sit there. Oh, hey
Exactly.
kids, it's just like, hey, take it around.
100%, and that's the kind of like, I've been to some events, man, to kind of, to see, like, am I going to get pulled over? Are they going to tail me? They're going to call ahead. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's not, man. It's 100% legit. There's a lot
pretty
of
amazing.
insurances that have to be taken out for that. It's
Yes.
treated, it's like a beer festival, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. I want to move on to something, but at the same time, what we're going to do is we're going to break this up into two parts. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to do part one here, and we're going to end it with the end sequence. So we're going to say, stay tuned for part two, and we'll do part two after this.